Hello. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another WayForward Spaces chat. This is Hoff, your social media tinkerbat, coming to you live from the Hellhold. Things have been busy in WayForward land recently as we've released a few new videos for Clock Tower Rewind last week, and the playable Steam demo for Yars Rising is now available for you to get your hands on. But also, for quite some time now, we have been working behind the scenes on the content updates for Bloodstained Ritual of the Night from Koji Igarashi and Artplay and 505 Games. And that is mainly what we will be talking about today. Specifically, the final piece of content released earlier this week, Classic Mode 2 Dominique's Curse. And to that end, I am joined by the head of the Alchemy Guild, Tom Hewlett.
Head of the Alchemy Guild. That's wow. I didn't even know that. Hey, everybody.
Yeah, you've been promoted. Thanks for coming on.
Of course.
So we're going to talk a bunch about that. Before we continue, I should mention that we are, of course, taking questions. So if you have questions for Tom or general WayForward questions, please add us on the old Twitters. So first up, Tom, how did WayForward even get involved with Bloodstained Ritual of the Night?
Well, it was years ago now. I believe we'd been speaking with 505 about various things, and it just turned out there was some difficulties bringing home the game with the current developer, and they asked if we'd be able to assist, specifically with our environment art team, helping to finish. You know, there's it's a big castle. I believe it's Iga's biggest Igavania castle yet, and so there was a lot of castle to build.
Yes.
And then also just assisting with our expertise in the genre and our knowledge of Igavanias, just kind of anywhere else that they identified we could assist. So I helped design the final boss, for example, and just a bunch of little things here and there. And then once the main game was completed, they had, of course, their Kickstarter stretch goals, and so we became the main developer on all of that content.
Okay. And Tom, what exactly do you do or did you do on this project? What was your role?
I'm the director, so on the WayForward side, I was leading the team for, again, whatever that meant for a specific effort. But again, for that Kickstarter content, the first thing I did was um, they'd announced what all these modes were, so
Hmm.
people knew what they were expecting. There was some sort of online component. There was something called chaos mode. There was boss revenge mode. So for some of that, boss revenge is the example jumping to mind. Artplay knew what they wanted to do, but for other things like chaos mode and things of that nature, it was more up in the air. So Artplay said, WayForward, you can pitch what you guys think these modes should be like, and so I did that. And so it was almost like, even though we had this project, we were also pitching additional games in the project. So
Uh,
stuff I do at the start of most games, come up with a pitch doc, and then iterate it and get some assets and pitch that and get it approved, and then write the design. So it's doing that a bunch of little times throughout um, this project.
okay, so the TLDR version is director designer, yes?
Yes, yes.
Okay. And coming into this, what has been your past experience with Gothic action adventure games?
I've been I've been playing Gothic action games since such a thing existed. Uh, Back in the beginning, and then obviously once Koji Igarashi got involved, big fan of all of his games, and the way that the Metroidvania genre kind of sprung to life through his efforts, and then continued on the
Hmm.
portable systems and all that. I've played all of them, and then while I was at Konami, for those who don't know, I used to work at Konami. Um, I actually helped localize Order of Ecclesia, which was, I
Oh,
believe,
nice.
his last Igavania at Konami, I believe.
All right, cool. And how would you say this experience was different from other projects? Coming on to a game that was already partway in development.
It was unique. Obviously, when you're starting a game from scratch, there's a ton of freedom, and then as you go through development, different realities in the schedule, or limitations or surprises kind of guide what you're able to do. And then coming onto here, especially for the main game, we had a deadline that we're here to make sure they hit their date, so it doesn't get
Hmm.
delayed anymore. Um, it was pretty much like, hey, where do you need us? What is that thing supposed to be like? And using our knowledge, like, is it like this? Because we've played similar games. Is this what you're looking for? Yes, no, and then getting feedback and trying to iterate really quick to make sure it's done to the quality you'd expect of art play. Um, but really, really, it's like, just it's almost like we only had the end of the project at the end of the project.
Hmm.
Um, so we didn't have time to like think about, well, what would we do, like if we had this to start it. Like, that wasn't really the point.
Hmm.
And then with all the extra content, that more was like, well, here's the canvas we have as the main game, and then what cool stuff can we all come up with together? Way Forward, 505, and Art Play. What cool stuff can we come up with that will be compelling to users, and delight them as gamers, but also, like, leverage what we've built, um, and use it in cool ways.
All right, cool. And so, it actually has been, a few years that this has all been going on. And, I don't have a list in front of me. So, what all have you, and by you, I mean Way Forward, added to the project so far, following the completion of the main game?
Yeah. So if I forget something, forgive me, everybody. There's been a lot. Um, we did the boss revenge mode.
Hmm.
Zangetsu was already in progress before we came on, so that was sort of legacy stuff. We did the Child of Light mode. We did Kingdom Two Crowns crossover content. We did Journey crossover content. Um, the Bloodless playable was art play. That was something, when we put Bloodless in Boss Revenge, they were like, "Hey, we might be able to flip this into a new playable character. That'd be pretty fun." So that was a present from art play.
Oh,
Um,
no.
we did the randomizer, the online content, the DLC cosmetic packs, and the classic modes. I think that's everything.
Okay. Wow. Yeah, that was quite a bit of stuff. But yeah, tell us about this latest update. Tell us all about Classic Mode 2.
Yeah, so classic
What
mode
is it?
2. Yeah, huh? So we did classic mode before, which was part of the DLC, or part of the stretch goals from Kickstarter.
Hmm.
Um, which was, a classic like, what if Bloodstained is obviously a new brand, that was kickstarted almost 10 years ago, but what if it was around at the dawn of Gothic action? What would the original Bloodstained have been like? and so that's what Classic One was. And then um, while we were making that, and everyone was really excited, 505 wanted some additional content beyond the Kickstarter, and fans were
Right.
really excited about maybe playing as Dominique one day. They were making that clear on the forums, and so we pitched Classic Mode 2 once,
And for those unaware, who is Dominique?
Oh, Dominique, this is a spoiler, so if you haven't played Bloodstained, cover your ears.
Oh no.
Dominique turns out to be the big villain of the ritual of the night of the main game. She kind of
Okay.
betrays you, so she's the anti-hero. But fans love an anti-hero, so they really wanted to play as Dominique. So since Classic One was going so well, um, we pitched everybody on maybe Classic Mode 2, which is, we were already doing this original Gothic action classic version. What would a sequel to that be like if it had a day night cycle, towns, a big overworld, mansions, stuff like that? Um,
Interesting.
and so I think people are coming along with me on this one. Um, and so that was really exciting. And so while we finished Classic Mode 1, we knew this would be happening, but we did them in order. Um, and so then once we were done, we figured out how Dominique would be different from Miriam, who you play in Classic Mode 1, what power she'd have, and then built this entirely new map with outside areas, interiors, towns, caves, all sorts of fun things. And it's like a more adventure exploration version of classic mode. Again, with some new moves, new spells, sub weapons, um, some tricky clues. Maybe the townspeople don't tell the truth all the time, and you have to read between the lines there. Um,
Hmm.
and yeah, it's much longer than classic mode one. I saw a lot of responses when people started to play it. They were like, "Oh, I was expecting this to just be a couple levels," but no, it's a full gothic adventure sequel sized game.
Okay. So, how would you say the gameplay differs from the main game, and how it differs from Classic Mode One?
So from the main game, um, both classic modes kind of just harken back to that original, more stiff controlled, fixed jump distance type of stuff from the early gothic action games. But it's not literally like a game from the 80s. We've put in a lot of the things from later titles in that genre to make it more friendly,
Hmm.
as well as some things we've done, little WayForwardisms. And so we're classic one has a secret code where you can put it in, and you can actually get the legit, like, hardcore 1986 mode. Everything's the
Oh
same.
yeah, I forgot about that.
It's very difficult, but it's there to show we could. Um, so how Classic Two differs is, Dominique starts off. The story is she's been defeated at the end of Ritual of the Night. She wakes up in Limbo, which is her penance for trifling with demonic entities, and so she's in a weakened state. So she's got less health and everything. But since this is an adventure game, she gets upgrades. You can upgrade your health, your MP. You have an inventory of things, so you're not just getting an item and losing your old item. You're building up an inventory of multiple sub weapons. There's two different currencies that you get to buy different things. Um, so if
Do you
people are
find these permanent upgrades for your health and stuff, or do you level up with experience
You
points?
find them. There's no experience.
Okay.
Uh, and if someone listening is totally unfamiliar with Gothic action games and Bloodstained, Classic Two is kind of structured like a Shantae title would be, if you know WayForward games. So that's kind of what you're looking at. So Shantae can upgrade her hair whip strength, and Dominique can upgrade the strength of her wrappings. She whips with like the bandages on her hand, so she can augment those with like runes and stuff. Um, so yeah, and then there's a lot of hidden secret bosses which are called hunters in the game. They'll give you new abilities or upgrades if you can find them, and then there's multiple endings to discover.
Okay. So, we keep kind of dancing around this. What other games would you say were like the main inspiration? What else could you compare it to?
Um, I think I have to keep dancing around it. Um, It's like Gothic adventure games from the NES maybe that you've played. But again, Shantae takes inspiration for the same things. It's really it's not a Metroidvania, but it is the inspiration that kind of led Iga to make his his Igavanias in this style. Is kind of we went back to the basics of that. So with I'm now dodging your question, but with Classic Mode 1 and Classic Mode 2, and then the Curse of the Moon games that Inti Creates did for Bloodstained, we've kind of created this fake historical canon of Bloodstained, where
Hmm.
Ritual of the Night is now like the PlayStation game, and then we've now made this canon of 8 and 16-bit games, um, and that's kind of the I approached it that way as like kind of a game design challenge. Is can we make retroactively make this origin series? And so that's kind of
Hmm.
where it comes from.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to play Classic 2 yet, but I have played Classic 1. I played the Integrate stuff. I played the main game a little bit. And yeah, I think it's been a lot of fun, and you did a great job capturing that retro feel for the Classic 1 mode. So, in the past, the last time we were on, I think we talked a ton about the music for Contra, but what was the approach to music for Classic 2?
Yeah. And again, last time we covered like everyone at WayForward loves game music, and it's a huge focus for us. I think each director has their own kind of approach, um, which is cool. So for this, we pitched a couple different things to Artplay. With Classic One, they had some really great songs that were part of the stretch goals. Like I think it was like if they reached some goal, this composer would make an 8-bit track, and this composer would make an 8-bit track. And so then we were making classic mode. We used those tracks in classic mode, and we had some new music from Eric Serkey, and it was retro sounding. And so for classic two, we pitched them a couple ideas about what we could do with the music. And Artplay was very specific. They said we want this to sound like it's coming off the Famicom with the VRC6 chip. It has to sound like that. And so when I have a request that's specific, I go to Brave Wave, who's a great group of a music conglomerate. I don't know. They have lots of cool game composers,
Oh, okay,
and
conglomerate.
we worked with them on many projects, including Contra. Um, and so I said, hey, we gotta make VRC6 music, and they said, great. They're all familiar with the genre and Bloodstained, and they knew exactly what to do. And then we just made a bunch of music and we submitted them to Artplay, and um, again, Artplay knows what the sound they wanted, so there was a lot of back and forth. But in my opinion, we really nailed a great soundtrack. So um, there's a lot of cool composers in there. Um, Lena Rain is in there. Tim McCord from Evanescence is in there. He also worked on
Oh,
a
nice.
track for Contra, but
Yep.
he did Classic 2 first, technically. But lots of really cool stuff. We've been listening to the soundtrack for a year or so now, but I'm glad that everyone else now gets to hear it.
I haven't had a chance to hear it yet. Share it with me.
Okay.
Um, so, what happens if walk up to a cliff and crouch for a few seconds?
Um, a cliff, not much, but there's spots where you might want to crouch for a few seconds. I, w-
Hmm.
I wouldn't hit your head against any cliffs, Hoff. I think that
Okay.
would be a waste of your
Is there a graveyard duck?
time. There is a reference to it, but you'll have to find it.
All right, I'll keep my eyes open. Um, what can you tell me about the day-night cycle?
Yeah, so it's limbo. So technically, it's two different moon cycles. It's like night and then more night. Um, but in the normal blood moon, things are relatively calm for limbo. The demons in towns are kind of calm. They'll talk to you. They'll give you some clues. Sell some stuff to you, and then enemies in the field are there. And then in the worst night, um, which is a green moon. It's Devil's Moon or Demon Moon. Sorry, guys. Uh, when the when the moon indicators
The
come
green moon rises.
things are worse. Enemies hit harder. They take more hits. and those demons in the town kind of go nuts, and so they'll attack you on sight. They won't give you clues. They won't tell you things.
Wow.
And then the hunters I mentioned come out. So the hunters are hidden throughout the map. Some in the open, and some you have to find them. But at night, they might spring up and attack you, and they're really tough. So it's not friendly at night. And then the dungeons or the manors or whatever you want to call them, they have a special merchant in them called the
Hmm.
groundskeeper. He is going to be really important to find. He can sell you your HP and MP upgrades.
Oh, nice.
And in the daytime, he's kind of roaming around outside the dungeon, and then at nighttime, he's in the dungeon. So, um, based on what you're trying to do, that either one is advantageous, but just be aware of what time of day it is. I mean, what moon cycle it is, and because you'll want to see. There's one per dungeon. You want to seek them all out. They're really important in PC.
Sounds like a horrible night to have a dangerous moon or whatever. So how many dungeons, mansions are there?
There are 5 total. So you have
Okay.
to beat. You can beat the first 4 in any order. And I've seen some crazy orders already, so I'm sure the speedrunners are going to go nuts with it. But then the 5th one unlocks, and that's the final dungeon.
Okay. Is there anything else you want to tell me about the multiple endings? How many endings are there? Can you divulge that?
There are 3 endings. Um, People haven't quite figured out how to get them yet. I'll say the hunters are important,
Okay. Okay.
and they're
Well, been out for 2 days, so I don't want to spoil too much yet.
yeah. And then so one of the niceties we added that I mentioned was in the pause menu this time. We record all of the clues that you get, so you don't need
Oh,
to go all the way back to town to remember what somebody said. You can just check it on the pause menu.
well, what am I going to do with the notes section of my manual now?
I know. Well, good thing. Good news for you. There's no more manuals. But anyway,
Oh, yeah.
there's a section of that pause menu that might need to be filled out as well. That might help with your endings.
Hmm.
That's all I'll say.
Okay. Um, oh, man. I had a question. It just totally flowed right out of my head like a bat. Um, do you have any other tips for Classic 2?
Other tips. Make sure. So like Shantae, there's 2 different whip upgrades. There's length and damage. And I've seen some streamers so far focus on one over the other. Like I've seen both, but I haven't seen people really buying both of them. So um, just keep in mind, check everything in the shop. Make sure you know what you're buying and what you're skipping. It's all pretty useful. Um, and then my other major tip is I mentioned there's 2 currencies. If you do have lives, but if you game over, you can continue from the same screen, but it costs you some of your gold.
Oh, that's what I was going to ask. That's totally what I was going to ask. I was asking about the game difficulty because, classic Gothic action adventure games, had wildly varying difficulty. The
Yes.
sequel to which, maybe gave you kind of infinite continues.
Yes. So you can continue, and there are save points, and you can, of course, not pay and then go back to your last save. So if you just saved, there's no reason not to reload. But if you want to pick up where you died, if maybe you've played a few maps and you're got some stuff you don't want to lose, it does cost gold, a percentage of your gold to continue, but it doesn't cost your other currency stays with you forever. So be like, don't maybe convert everything to gold unless you're ready to buy something,
Mm.
because you can kind of control that penalty a little bit if you're smart. So just keep an eye on that.
So Dominic is like Mario, just collecting gold coins everywhere.
Well, collect everything you see, but you can convert your monster parts to gold, and but then it's at risk. So just know what you're doing.
You'll never take me gold. Is there anything else specifically about Classic 2 that you want to share?
Hmm. Um. There's a boss that I guess fans know this. There's a boss that didn't make it into Ritual that's in Classic 2. So, there's some exciting stuff in there for eager Bloodstained fans. So please check it out.
Okay. All right. So now that our bloodstained journey is over, what would you say has been the most interesting thing to implement, the toughest thing to implement?
Um, hmm. I really enjoyed the randomizer because that was actually a moment in development which 505 talked about. This has been years ago now, but um, one of the things that was promised in the Kickstarter was roguelike mode.
Mm,
Um, and it just turned out because of development stuff that wasn't really possible. But we didn't want to disappoint those players, so um, I looked at kind of what is popular among the genre, and obviously speed runs are really popular, and then also randomizers are super popular. Where I think most Metroidvanias get somebody modding the game to make a randomizer. So if people don't know, that's like it shuffles the location of all the items and or enemies and whatever. So you can replay the game and have a different experience, which is kind of what roguelikes are in a way. So I pitched that as a good replacement mode, and then we also put rogue elements into chaos mode, which again was one of the online ones that came out a month or so ago. So
okay.
chaos mode is like a boss rush roguelite for 1 to 2 players. Um, and so that was just fun seeing like, okay, well, we can't do this rogue thing that people want, but we don't want to disappoint them. So how can we fit rogue elements into other things? What's a new cool thing we can provide? So that was a really satisfying thing to do, and I haven't paid attention since then. Maybe this is not true anymore, but at the time, it was the first like officially sanctioned randomizer because, like I said, they're usually mods that people make.
Yeah.
But this was presented by 505 Art Play and WayForward as like, here's the randomizer. You can customize it. You can do everything you can do in a randomizer. I think I think fans have still modded a different one, but it was nice to be there and do that and
Yeah.
feel like we had our finger on the pulse and that we could help Art Play deliver something that their fans would want or would have done anyway. So here it is officially. It was just fun. It was a good satisfying moment.
Okay, cool. And is that also the most challenging thing, or would something else be the most challenging?
Most challenging is hard. Um,
Well, yeah, that's what it means.
I'm trying to think of through all the modes. I had to write poetry for the Child of Light mode. That might be the most challenging.
Okay,
um,
that is very understandable.
so Child of Light is, for people who don't know, is like a side view RPG where all the dialogue was written in rhyming couplets or um, some sort of meter. I knew it at the time. Um, so I had to learn Child of Light, figure out how we could map Child of Light into the game map, so it provides kind of a Child of Light experience, and then Art Play helped us design what the character would do to provide something unique for Bloodstained, but also feel true to Aurora's character. And
Mm,
then to guide you through it, I had to write everything in meter, um, which was fun, but it was challenging.
very understandable.
Yeah.
Poetry was not my strongest topic in school. Okay, so we got a few listener questions here. This first one is from at Gunlord500, who asks, I'm wondering, what was Iga-sama's involvement with Dominique's curse? Did he oversee the whole thing, or was WayForward given a great deal of creative leeway? Also, will you guys be working with Iga in the future by any chance?
So kind of both. Artplay is a really interesting client in that, again, for this bonus content, they really wanted to let WayForward kind of pitch things so that we'd be passionate about what we were doing. But then also, they're very specific on feedback, which sometimes you get clients that have a lot of demands up front and then stop caring, or um, I don't know. But our play was just different. So um, once we pitched things, like I said, it was like an actual pitch process. We would pitch, here's what the gameplay is, and they'd say, what about this or that? And we come to a consensus and then start making that. And then they would care about game balance, or we for Classic 2, we had a lot of talk about the clues that the townspeople provide, and for the
Mm.
ones that are tricky, how tricky is fair. And so they had a lot of feedback on that. They
Huh.
care a lot about boss patterns and stuff. So Iga and also Shutaro Ida, his director, they're both very involved in everything, but they also at the same time wanted WayForward to feel like, well, we were making this game. It wasn't just them demanding things. So it was really interesting. I think the end result is really good because of that. And then, are we working with Iga in the future? It'd be cool. There's no plans right now, but you know, the, the game industry goes on, so maybe in the future it'd be fun.
Okay. Your answer to that brought up another question for me, which is there a way to tell when villagers are lying to you in Classic 2?
Yeah, if you're paying really close attention, you will have a hunch. And then there's also an item you can find, which will reveal the truth about a lot of things, not just villagers, but a
Hmm.
lot of things. So if you have that item, then it will directly tell you what they're actually lying about.
Yeah, very nice. I appreciate that. Some classic Gothic action adventure games were not so generous.
Yes.
Next question comes from at Megatsu_cloud. Is the true ending of Dominique's Curse going to help lead the way into the future of Bloodstained? Love the DLC.
That's a good question. As we know, ArtPlay is working on a sequel to Bloodstained, and as I just alluded to, we're not working on that one. So I don't actually know. Um, we worked with ArtPlay on the story of Classic 2, including the endings, and 505 has said, I believe, that the ending is canon. So I don't know. I guess we'll see. I'm excited to find out.
Okay. This next one, I think you might have just answered, but I will ask it anyway. It is from at TBustin79. Did creating Classic 2 inspire anything that we might see in the sequel?
Um, Again, I don't know. That's a good. That would be exciting to see, because it would be cool to see that something we did with ArtPlay inspired ArtPlay to take it further. So that'd be cool.
Makes sense. Next question is from at Let's Roleplay 002. What inspired the idea of Classic 2, and how did you and or Artplay come to the story we see now? What led to making this not only a throwback to Simon's Quest, oh, I never heard of that game, but also canon to Ritual of the Night's story? Were the lore elements mostly from Artplay Iga or collaborative between them and WayForward?
Man, who's Simon? He sounds cool. I bet he wears red armor.
It's a
Anyway,
new game I heard about. It's coming out soon, I think.
um, the main pitch started at WayForward, like I said, as well as, let's see. I'm thinking back to the meeting. Like I said, 505 was really active on the forums, and they were saying how people really like Dominique. So I think,
Mhm.
uh, I believe WayForward came up with the setting of Limbo, so Dominique would have been banished to Limbo, and that made a lot of sense with the townspeople switching it up at night, because we needed a way. Why are towns unsafe at night? And so that kind of made sense. If they're demons, they can be a little bit finicky and go crazy at night. So that worked, and so then that was pretty set in stone. And then the functional elements of the plot, like, what are we finding, or what are we doing? Why are we doing that? How does that lead to Bale? Because obviously Bale would be the final boss, because that's the final boss of Ritual. That was kind of discussed back and forth, so it'd be really collaborative. And then we pitched some endings. The the first two endings, I believe, are what we pitched, and the
Okay.
true ending was something ArtPlay suggested, and so then we built from there.
Okay, very cool.
Um,
You know,
sorry.
yeah, that raised another question for me. You know, when it goes through this multiple night cycle, and the villagers do become, sinister demons, and you have to slay them. Does that mean it's like, oh, this villager's gone now? Like he can't give me a clue anymore, or will they just
No, I
be back
figured
once it returns?
it's limbo, so I figure their souls just get immediately recycled.
Yeah, okay,
Because that's, I mean, where are they going to go?
that makes sense.
Um, and I do want to say, so my original pitch for the endings was to keep them time based, um, which again may be inspired by somebody named Simon. I don't know. But one of Iga's big things specifically was, um, the old Gothic adventure game had some frustrating elements, and he wanted to make sure those were not, like, we weren't making a bad game on purpose, which again wasn't the goal at all. But he just wanted to make sure people didn't take that away from this. And so
Fair.
he thought forcing people to play it really fast to see the ending wasn't fair. And so that's not it. So I've seen people assuming that's it. I get why you're assuming that. But that's not it. So it is something you can do. And then if you get the bad ending, you can, in your same save file, then go do the things you have to do to get the true ending. So you're not penalized, for just playing a certain way. And then his other thing was, like I said, the townspeople. So there had to be ways to figure out that they were lying, so you didn't just get really confused. Yeah.
Okay. And this one I think you've kind of touched on before, but this last question we got here is from at Gaming Carmig, who asks, "Is a new Bloodstained 2D game in the works?"
Again, we all we know so far, which has been officially announced, is that there's a sequel to Ritual of the Night. But that is, I don't know. If there's more, I don't know. But
The
I,
answer is not from us, not from
not from
WayForward.
us, and I'll be playing it when it comes out.
Okay. Um, and we just got uh, another question coming on the Twitters that says, "When were you guys founded? I know it was 1990 and all, but well, that was from at Steve_Striker 34. You are correct. It was 1990. Weird question, sort of. No offense. But yeah, those are all the questions that we have today. So I think we're going to wrap it up a little bit on the early side. Uh, Bloodstained Ritual of the Night is out now on Switch, PS4, Xbox, and PC. Classic 2 Dominique's Curse is add on DLC. It is also out now. It'll run you a measly $10, and you can get it on those same platforms. In addition to, as we mentioned at the top of the chat, the Yars Rising demo is out now on Steam. I believe it'll only be up for a limited time during Steam Next Fest, so please check that out while you can. And also, I don't know if we've mentioned this before, but WayForward will be at Anime Expo for the July 4th weekend in Los Angeles. We will be holding a WayForward panel on Friday, July 5th at 9:30 p.m. So after a long day at the con, kick back and relax with your friends at WayForward. Tom, is there anything else that you'd like to say?
I guess we should mention that, if people don't know, the one of the well, there's cosmetic packs you can buy for Bloodstained, but there's a free one if you haven't logged in lately. You will have a Shantae costume for free if you turn your game on right now.
That's right.
So
That's not in this latest update, but it was in the previous update that came out a few weeks back.
yeah, so people might care about that if they're WayForward fans.
This is true. This is very true. Thanks for bringing that up. But yeah, all right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for listening and for asking questions. And thank you, Tom, for chatting here and answering them.
Yeah, thanks again. Thanks everybody.
We will catch you next time.